Hey everybody, it's Pat King here at the Poison Pen. I hope you guys are having an incredible Monday night. This is really exciting. We are launching a little bit early. Kevin Hearne's, the wonderful former Arizonan author here. We're launching his new book, Ink and Sigil, and this is really an exciting night. It's fun because this is the first time we've seen Kevin, I think this year, which is incredible. We usually see him a couple times a year. He has written the Iron Druid series along with his, the No Country for Old Gnome, the Pell series, and also, and I'm blanking on the name of it, the Seven Kennings series, all of which have been huge hits, and we're really excited to welcome Kevin. Kevin, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I trust that you are somebody is out there. All I can see on my screen, of course, is Patrick. And because I don't have the Facebook thing going, I'm just doing this through Zoom. So hello. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for coming.
It's a little bit different, isn't it, Kevin? Yeah. Is this your first Zoom author appearance, or is this?
No, it's not my first Zoom thing, but it's the first time I've tried to do like a Zoom/Facebook thing. So yeah, this is a tiny bit different setup, but almost everything is just a tiny bit different, and so that's okay.
It's the year 2020. So yeah. One of the great things is I think you've got a little something for those of us who are of age to help actually pass 2020 along. Yeah. You've been dabbling in something kind of new.
Yeah. Maybe not. Well, since we can't really go out to bars, I figured maybe we should learn a thing or two about how to make a decent drink at home. And I've actually started to do on Saturdays a series called Books and Home Bartending, and where I kind of gush about some book that I'm reading. And then I also show you how to make a cocktail at home. And I thought that I would show you one now, if that's okay. And if you're not of age, then just take notes for later, I guess, or just be patient. We'll get to the book stuff in just a second. But I wanted to share with you guys a little something. Since this book, Ink and Sigil, is set in Scotland, I wanted to make something with Scotch whiskey called Glenfiddich. This is a Speyside, and it's 15 years old. And it's very smooth, lovely vanilla, stuff. Doesn't really burn you when you drink it compared to some other stuff. Doesn't have that peaty smokiness kind of thing going on. So I wanted to make something for you that is a variation on a Manhattan. And a Manhattan is a great way to enjoy whiskey without just drinking it straight. It basically adds to the whiskey, and it supports it without changing it and disguising its flavors. So that's why a lot of people like Manhattans. And then if you make it with Scotch, then you call it a Rob Roy. It's basically the same thing. You just are making it with like a single malt instead of like a blended Irish or anything like that. Any other kind, like a bourbon or a rye is usually what you use with a Manhattan, but we're going to use Scotch, so it's a Rob Roy. Okay. And then we're also doing something a tiny bit different. We're going to call this a Seville Rob Roy, and that's because of the orange that we're going to do with it. Okay, so when you're doing a Manhattan, you're using sweet vermouth. Okay. Get any brand you like. All right. I have this particular brand. There's a bunch. Get whatever you like. It's all good. And you just go ahead and put yourself a half ounce of that in there. Okay. However you're going to measure these things, okay? So half ounce of sweet vermouth, and I'm just pouring this right now into a cocktail shaker with ice. I am not going to shake it. I'm going to stir it. I'm just using a shaker because I want to be able to strain it later into a glass. So the other thing we're doing, the reason this is called a Seville Rob Roy, is because we're using a little bit of orange stuff that you get in Cointreau. Cointreau is an orange liqueur that is made with Seville oranges. They're kind of bitter a little bit, and it's a good thing. It tastes really good in a drink, okay? So we put a half ounce of that in there too. Half ounce sweet vermouth, half ounce of Cointreau, okay? Then we are going to put in 2 ounces of our spirit, whatever that is for you. It could be any kind of whiskey, bourbon, rye. A Seville Manhattan if it is anything except for Scotch, and if it is Scotch, then it's a Seville Rob Roy. Okay, so we're using 15-year-old Glenfiddich, and I'm doing 2 ounces of this. Okay, so 2 ounces of your spirit, whatever that is that you're using. There we go. Then once you have all that in there in your mixing glass, then you mix it. Sound effects. You know, you have about, and you have to do this for a little bit, 30 seconds, something like that. Okay. And we usually stir when it comes to stuff with spirits. And the reason you shake things is because you have juice in it of some kind, like an orange juice or lemon juice or lime juice. You would stir it instead, okay? Or shake it instead if you have a juice in there. Since we have no juice, we are stirred, okay? So we got that done. It's cooled down. It's all that kind of stuff. And I have a fancy glass. It was in the freezer, so you can still see there's some condensation on it. And I'm going to put on the top here so that I can then strain it into my glass. And you can see it has this lovely amber/orange appearance to it. Woohoo! Okay. All right, and then last but not least, very important, at least I think it is, get yourself an orange and a little fun little peeler guy, and you start going ahead and peeling off a little bit of that rind. And the reason you like to have a fairly decent peeler for something like this is that it will do a nice sort of thin peel for you, so you don't get too much rind on it. There is some on here, but it's a very thin layer. The more rind you have in it, the more bitter it is. And we just want a little bit of extra citrus. So I'm going to take that sucker, and I'm actually going to kind of twist it over the drink so that some of these oils get expressed into the drink. And it's a very lovely little effect. So then you have yourself a Seville Rob Roy, which is just a little bit of orange added to the whiskey flavors that are already there. It's not going to overpower your whiskey. It's just going to add to everything and make it lovely. So cheers, everybody. I hope you enjoy this or something similar. You have a lovely beverage at home, wherever you are. I love it.
How is that? So simple too to make, isn't it? One of the easiest drinks to actually make at home.
Absolutely. And so, you know, the quality of your whiskey, of course, is going to have a lot to do with how much you dig it. And excuse me while I adjust this here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a chair, okay? Because I was standing for all that. But I'm just going to pull up a chair and maybe adjust the camera a little bit. Woohoo! All right. And now I can sit down and talk with y'all. And I'm really happy. How's that?
What has life been as a writer in COVID times? Has it been a fairly interesting few months there for you, Kevin?
It has. It has been super stressful, as I am sure it has been for everybody. But in terms of my day-to-day, not a lot different because I was already working at home anyway. It's just that I didn't travel this summer like I usually do. And like I would usually be traveling for this. I would be flying out to Arizona and hanging out with you guys and seeing you in person and heading over to Rula Bula and chilling out there. But I can't do that. And so I'm doing things like this instead. And I really enjoyed the summer up here. It's been very nice in that regard.
I am so jealous that you're up in the mountains. It is 117 as I was coming in to interview you tonight. And it's just been like that. You've probably heard from friends and family that it's just been a really horrible summer here in Arizona. Usually so. I mean, we haven't really gotten a monsoon. It's been really different. Have you noticed your writing has changed from moving out of the desert and moving into the mountains?
Not so much. I mean, it was okay. So I have some fun news. I finished a book earlier today.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I finished the sequel to Ink and Sigil. I finished Paper and Blood. And I started writing it on January 7th before the pandemic actually hit the news. So I began outlining it and all that stuff. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and I'm still kind of outlining and that took a little while. So for some time now, I've been writing books that are urban fantasies anyway. Anywhere from takes me anywhere from 4.5 was the record, 4.5 months to 9 months, and this one took me 8 months and 9 days. So I'm still, I made my deadline. I'm still on time. I was hoping to have it done a tiny bit earlier than what I managed, but all things considered, I'm super happy to have finished it today. I am actually turning it in tomorrow, 1 week before the release of Ink and Sigil. So to get that lucky number 7 in there, 7 days before. So that's been my year. Is I've basically been working on paper and blood, and I'm so happy to have finished it today. It's a kind of a load off my shoulders. I'm probably not going to write anything until the beginning of September now.
It seems rather cruel to make you start talking about Ink and Sigil, because that's now a book away from where you are at. And it's always the case. Most writers, you're usually a book ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Time that when your book comes out and you're having to go back and think about the book that you has just released because you're done or nearly done with the new one.
Yeah. And that's, you're, like you said, it's normal. We're always talking about something that we wrote like a year ago. And that's fine, especially when, I have just been working on the sequel to it rather than like a different series. It's easier to kind of jump back. So I've been working with the same characters, etc.
With the Seven Kenning series, though, that seems like a lot more of an intense process. I've talked to you about this, and you said it's really a different sort of book to write from your urban fantasy. So do you have to keep yourself kind of in that urban fantasy mode to continue writing, the new series, or are you wanting to at some point in time shift back and write the Kenning series?
Well, that's actually what I am going to do. When I start writing again in September, I'm writing A Curse of Krakens, which is the 3rd book in the trilogy. So I'll be finishing off that trilogy. That's my next thing on my to-do list after
Nice.
I take a tiny break.
Yeah, you haven't really given yourself much of a break, have you? I mean, I was just thinking about it because we're halfway through August now, and you said, well, in September, I'm going to start writing Curse of Krakens. You're giving yourself just a few days off before you jump on into the new thing. What do you do to get yourself to prepare for writing for one series or another? What is it that kind of motivates you to get into that mindset?
Actually, I don't try to get into the mindset. I try to get out of it as much as possible, if that makes sense. Like when I have a break between books, I try to do a bunch of things that have absolutely nothing to do with writing for a while, and just try to kind of replenish, refill the well, so to speak. Then when it is time to start writing the new thing, I feel a little bit rejuvenated, and I'm not, I've got a whole bunch of ideas kind of that's banging around that's been going around in my subconscious. You know what I mean? So if I don't consciously think about it, my subconscious keeps thinking about story ideas. I don't know if this makes any sense, but cognitively, this works for me.
I mean, because it's tough. But you've got to let the story mull, I guess. I find that when I'm working, for instance, on a particular project and I'm stuck on something, if I go away and I don't think about it for a day or two, the answers come to me in order to solve the problem that we're working on. It's a very similar process. You got to let the mind relax and do what it's going to do. So tell us a little bit about Ink and Sigil, as much as you possibly can without spoiling too much of the story.
Okay, so if you are brand new to my books, awesome. You can start here with Ink and Sigil and have a great old time. If you have read my Iron Druid Chronicles, then you are going to recognize a lot of things, sort of like Easter eggs, and you'll be comfortable in the world and its magic system. Even though this is a new magic system, it is still a magic system based on the Druidic magic system I had been using in the Iron Druid world. A lot of the Tua de Danann are present, and the Fae, of course. All of the world building stuff from the Iron Druid world is there. And so you're going to recognize that stuff if you come from the Iron Druid, but if you are coming to my books brand new, starting with Ink and Sigil, you're still going to be fine. So we have a new protagonist. His name is Al McVarish, and he is in Glasgow, Scotland. And they do come over to the United States in Ink and Sigil for a little while and make visits to Philadelphia and Reston, Virginia. And then in the second book, Paper and Blood, they're in Melbourne, Australia. So we get, in the book I just finished, Paper and Blood, you get a lot more Atticus and Oberon, because Atticus and Oberon were, of course, left in Tasmania at the end of the Iron Druid Chronicles. Hopefully that's not spoiling anything. They're just there. And so, you know, our protagonist in the new series, Ink and Sigil, is going to hook up with Atticus and Oberon from the Iron Druid Chronicles a lot in book 2, although there is a smaller introduction of the two parties in Ink and Sigil. So, and this is about a guy, Al McVarish, who writes magical contracts and enforces them for various pantheons, various paranormal creatures, to sort of regulate their appearances on Earth. Or, you know, and then if they are here without permission, then it's kind of his business to say, hey, get out of here. And then that may or may not go so well. So,
Al, unfortunately, though, has a rather bad curse, doesn't he?
yeah, he does. He's also cursed, and he's trying to figure out what or who cursed him. And it forces him to use a speech app on his phone or a laptop, a text to speech app. I didn't want to say speech to text. It's a text to speech. He types something in, and it speaks for him. And the reason he has to do this is that he figured out that somebody had cursed him in such a way that after a certain amount of time, he doesn't know when exactly it trips, but after a certain amount of time, if he's talked too much to somebody, they start to hate him. Like, not just like, oh, I don't really like that guy, like seriously, almost murderously wish, he didn't exist. So that ruins his relationships with his family, and he realizes what an effective, terrible curse it is. And that's how he figures out that something has been done to him, because it's such a sudden turnaround when the trigger, snaps or switches or whatever, when the curse takes effect, that, his son completely doesn't want to see him anymore, things like that. So, and there's no reason for it, So he has to figure out who's cursed him so that he can have his life back. And then there's maybe another curse on his head too that he's not aware of yet. So he's got personal issues involved with that are bound up with his work issues.
That is such a cool premise, and it's really a lot of fun to go back to the world that you had started off with within the Iron Druid series. What was it like getting back into that headspace? Because you had taken some time away to write the Pell series with Delilah and to also do the Seven Kennings book. Was it like putting on a comfortable pair of socks?
Well, the world building part was already done for me. But at the same time, this is a new magic system that he's using, the ink and the sigils, the magical inks that he is using to create sigils that have some interesting magical effects. Those are kind of brand new, and they were invented by Breed. They are basically druidic bindings used through this ink and the sigil, and she's doing this because she needed things done. Atticus wasn't doing them. He was hiding out from the gods, right? So she needed some other way to get things done on Earth. And so she created the sigil agents, and their magic system so that they could kind of do the errands that she needed doing.
Exactly. So it's going fresh in a way. In a sense, yeah. So that way, you're doing something new. You're doing something that excites you a little bit. Yeah. And you were able to probably make some excuses to do a little research in person.
Yes, I did go to Glasgow, spent a couple of weeks there, and it was so wonderful. They've got the coolest, most goth, creepy cathedral and necropolis in Glasgow. It is just begging for an urban fantasy to be set there. And then the town itself is just so wonderful. It's just full of surprises. And it is the second largest city in the UK after London. And a lot of people don't realize that. But it is a really wonderful, complex, meaty sort of city to go explore. Lots of things to discover.
It's really got a great urban essence to it. Um, it's almost like it's a working class city. It's almost like going to Detroit a little bit, um, except they have a way cooler accent. I do have to say, the Glaswegians, and they've produced some really great mysteries out of there. Denise Mina and Stuart McBride, who have both been
Yeah.
here and come from Glasgow, two of the nicest authors you're ever going to meet. But boy, they managed to chill you to the bone with their writing.
I've read a couple of Stewarts. Those are good.
Aren't they? Oh my gosh, you feel like the cold, wet rain is just pouring down your back. If for those of you who live in Arizona and are watching this, I'd highly recommend them because they're going to, despite the fact that it's 119, they're gonna give you some shivers. So tell me, what sort of research did you do while you were there? Did you just eat and drink and absorb the atmosphere, or did you sort of study some of the history as well?
I did do some of the eating and drinking, that's for sure. I went around and scouted out several places. Went and visited the necropolis. Also, Kelvin Grove, the museum is beautiful. They have an amazing organ there. It's just beautiful. It's eldritch. It's like, it looks like it's actually green. And it looks like it's going to do some magical stuff to you. And then there's just I don't know. I love the fact that there are details about being in a place that you would never get off of Google Earth. One thing that I found fascinating was that in Glasgow and in the UK, kind of in general, people tend to smoke more than they do in North America. And you still can't smoke inside. They've got that, the same sort of rules that they have in the United States. But because so many people are smoking, there's a lot more cigarette butts on the sidewalks and things like that. Kind of gives it this gritty feeling, and you see people smoking and vaping and stuff like that all the time while you're there. And then there's also other things that you learn. Certain, foods, the Scottish breakfast, the scones, and the clotted cream, and you can have a high tea there if you want. There's quite an involved gin industry there. Gin is the second largest selling spirit behind whiskey in Scotland, because they have so many cool botanicals up there that they put inside their gins. So I loved all of that kind of stuff. And I got to take a ride up into the Highlands, see the Highland coos. Have you ever seen a Highland coo?
Highland coos are amazing.
Yeah, love them. They're those shaggy, forehead. Yeah, they're great.
I mean, you just want to. I actually got chased by sheep at Hadrian's Wall. I was there. I got razzed for that back in the day. And I was brave enough to try haggis, but they put it on potato skins for Americans. So it was a little bit different of a experience.
I had the good old fashioned way. I had it as part of a Scottish breakfast, And
did you do the blood pudding as well?
I did. I loved the haggis, but not so much the black pudding. That was not for me, but I am happy for people who like it. If you like black pudding, you can have mine.
I actually liked the black pudding. I enjoyed the black and the white pudding. But I was brave and maybe still slightly drunk at that point in time in the morning. So that very well could have made a huge difference. So Joseph Mave is asking you, he says, of the books you've written, does any particular book stand out as the most enjoyable to write?
Oh, wow. Okay, so for me, it was the second book of the Seven Kennings, A Blight of Black Wings. I really love that book. It happens to be my wife's favorite book. She thinks it's the best thing I've written. I tend to agree at this point, and I hope A Curse of Krakens will be just as good. I had a wonderful time doing A Blight of Black Wings because a lot of the world building had already been done with A Plague of Giants. And then I got to really explore the characters and let them grow a whole bunch in that second book. And it was just a wonderful experience for me. I love it. And so I am looking forward to getting back into that world and revisiting those characters and developing them even more in A Curse of Krakens.
I've got to say, Blight of Black Wings probably has to be my favorite book as well. I think that
Yeah.
you really outdid yourself in that book. And it's a different type of voice. It's a different Kevin voice
Yeah.
from the Kevin voice that we get in your Iron Druid series or the Ink and Sigil series, but it's still uh, they're all wonderful. You really are one of my favorite writers.
I really appreciate that. It is like I know that the urban fantasy is what I'm most known for, but the Seven Kennings is the series, the books of my heart. Those are the things that I've always wanted to write, and didn't really feel that I was up to writing them until I'd written quite a few of the urban fantasies. I learned a lot from the urban fantasy stuff, and then I was able to apply what I'd learned to writing the best possible epic fantasy that I could dream of. So, like I said, I'm very excited to get into Curse of Krakens.
That's exciting. It really is.
Thanks for the question, Joseph.
Lee Whiteside would like to know about a novella that's coming from Subterranean Press that you're
Yeah,
also working on.
yeah, it's done. I'm excited about it too. And hopefully you guys will have a few copies to sell to folks. But you can order directly from Subterranean Press if you'd like, or through the Poison Pen. But it's called A Question of Navigation, and it is my first science fiction foray. And it is available for pre-order now from them. And it is a spooky sort of alien abduction mystery, but with a kind of a bit of a twist to it. So the protagonist was abducted from Colorado, but when he gets up to the ship, he realizes that he is only one of 50,000 people that have been abducted. So, and they've got a long trip ahead of them. So they have to figure out, so are we actually going to survive this, or what should we do here? So it sort of becomes, a revolution on a closed ship where you have no control. So, wow, what are you going to do? It's very kind of tense, but also amusing because of, I guess it's just because the way I write. And I had a great time with it. I still laugh at it, and also get grossed out by it because there's some gory stuff in there too. It's like this. So if you look at the cover, if you go to their site, you check it out, look for A Question of Navigation. You'll see this cover, and it's this really sort of 1990-ish pulpy horror slash campy feel to it. It's fantastic. The artist's name is Paul Yule, and I'm super impressed with his work. And I hope you guys will check it out, and I hope you dig it. There will be ebook and audio too, but the print edition is going to be just gorgeous. So, thank you, Lee.
I love your Subterranean books. It's always fun to get to the Oberon meaty mysteries. That's one of my favorite things that you have written. They're such a delight to get in there and to get into Oberon's head. And of course, if you're a dog lover, especially, I think it makes a bit of a difference. Donna Douglas was wondering, she was wondering, with your Scottish research, how did you research the Scots dialect, and how much of Scotland influenced the story?
Okay, cool. Hey, thanks, Donna, for the question. I really appreciate it. So I am super, super lucky to have a friend of mine up here in Ottawa who is from Glasgow. His name is Stu, and he goes back all the time. And then when I went back to visit Scotland, Stu was also there, and they gave me a list of places that I might want to check out. And then Stu also, I contracted him, I employed him, I don't know what to call it, but I basically asked Stu to be an expert reader for me, and paid him for his expertise. And he told me how to make these characters sound authentically Ouija. rather than from Edinburgh. Because even though Glasgow and Edinburgh are only 50 miles apart, they have completely different accents. And even within Glasgow and so on, there's different variations. So in the front of the paperback, or not the paperback, the hardcover version of Ink and Sigil, and also in the ebook, you will see an author's note, and it will explain exactly what I decided to do with the dialect. I didn't try to be exhaustively descriptive about what was going on with the language there. I tried to key in on a few repeated phrases to give you the flavor of it and to get you into that headspace without being completely sort of overwhelming about it, you know? So that's the approach I took. And I also acknowledge that there are different ways to spell the same darn word, you know, because you are talking about dialect in some cases, and how you spell things is a little bit up to your own, you know, judgment. So there you go. That's kind of what I did with it, and I hope you guys like it. And then of course Luke Daniels, who did the audiobook, had to learn the Ouija Scottish accent, and whew, I almost broke him, but he did it. It's great.
So I was thinking of Luke with the fact that Al has to speak through you know, a language app, and
Yeah.
I was thinking if you were doing that to be particularly mean to Luke, because
Luke.
it's almost it's almost a given now that he's going to be the one who's going to read your books.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's so dang good at his job, you know. And just to illustrate, like what he did, he realized as he was starting the book that he was not firing on all cylinders. He was not nailing it, and so he stopped. He went and rented some movies and you know, and documentaries even that were narrated by Ouijas. And then that allowed him to nail the accent by listening to them and mimicking them, and you know, and figuring out where were they pronouncing the vowels in their mouths. You know, it's very much forward in the mouth and on the palate. So he had to figure that out until he got it right. And then once he did, he was able to progress much better. But he had a rough go of it at first, and then he got the hang of it. But then, yeah, I told him going in, I'm like, look, you have to have this Ouija accent, not Edinburgh. Then there have to be these, you know, text to speech apps. And I listened to them all, and I was like, these are terrible. These things that they will communicate very basically, but they sound awful. And so that wasn't as much of a stretch for him, because he'd had to do it for a lot of sci-fi books, you know, have to do computer voices and things like that. So yeah, that was kind of part of the fun, and I can't wait to listen to it. I've only listened to chapter 1 so far. It's great.
Did you get any curt messages from Luke as this, you know, recording went on?
No, not so much. He told me after the fact that he was a little mad at the front end, but then he got the hang of it. The author's note that I was telling you about before, he said he actually used that, you know, to kind of get himself acclimated, and that helped a lot in terms of what I intended things to sound like.
So in terms of a couple questions about the series that you've just written, with Ink and Sigil, Pat Stodge wanted to know any original concerns about mashing up deities in a series.
Did I have any concerns about mashing up deities?
Yep. Any?
No, not too much, because these are mostly the deities of that I was using in the Iron Druid. They're the Tua de Danann. They are the pagan Irish, and then there's in terms of the Fae, there's a slightly different set of Scottish Fae from the Irish Fae. But remember that the Scots actually were, you know, they were part of the Irish who drifted over from Ireland to Scotland. Scotland was settled by the Irish. They're much closer related to Irish and Scottish. They have, you know, they have a language that's very close, you know, different versions of Gaelic, basically. So the Fae and their paganism back in the day was very similar as well. So they have some slight different variations on the Fae. The Blue Men of the Minch, for example, in Scottish lore, is something uniquely Scottish and doesn't appear in the Irish stuff. So there are things like that that are different, but then there is a lot of overlap too.
it's amazing. Well, you know that so many people crossed back and forth
Uh-huh.
between Ireland and Scotland, and Scotland has some amazing history to it. I mean, I remember traveling up to Isle of Oban, where they kept the original Bible, and they actually translated it during the Dark Ages on the and at the Abbey there, and you actually get to visit the Abbey, and it's an incredible trip because you go from, you know, you cross Oban over two islands to get on over there, and as it turns out, when we got over to the island, it was completely um, the buses were shut down, and the only way you were able to get on was a private tour. And we had a group of Scottish senior citizens that let us hop on their bus and cross the island, so we could take the ferry over to get over to the Abbey, which was it was really impressive. People there are very, very friendly. That's one of the things that I noticed
Yeah,
traveling there.
I had the best time. I loved it. I
Oh,
can't wait to go
um,
back someday when travel is, you know, permissible again.
exactly. So speaking of that, travel and all of that, how far do you plan your story arcs? Joe Walters is really interested.
Okay.
Um, how many future Inconsiderable books have you had planned? And if you have your druthers, where would you want to travel to do more research?
Okay, cool. Hey, thanks. Was it Joe? Did I
Joe,
catch that?
Joe
Joe,
Walters.
I appreciate it. So right now, this is the same sort of situation as the Iron Druid Chronicles was originally. I'm contracted for 3 books. Okay, if you guys like them, I'll write more. So I wrote the first 3 Iron Druid books, hoping that I would get to write more. Technically, I guess suppose it could have ended after Hammered, right? You know, I had the sort of the story arc where, you know, Atticus goes to Asgard, and then things kind of, you know, sort of kind of wrapped up there. But I really wanted to write more, and fortunately, people liked it. And so because you liked it and bought it and told your friends and so on, and they bought it, the publisher is willing to let me write more. So that's the same situation here for Ink and Sigil. If you guys dig them, I will write some more. I have basically the 3rd book. The plot of it is basically already in my head, but I can put that off and put more in. You know, I could basically finish it at book 3, or I can insert more fun adventures before I get to the final, you know, adventure, if that makes any sense. So it's flexible at this point. I can write some more. Book 2 was supposed to be, you know, it is set in Australia, and I was supposed to go there in April, but the pandemic ended that plan. So I had to basically eat a whole lot of plane fares, unfortunately. That, you know, how plane, you know, companies work. They won't give you cash refunds. They're just like, we'll give you a credit towards your future flight. I'm like, I don't know if I'm flying there again, man, but okay. So that the Australia thing didn't work out, but I had a couple of friends who lived there, and they were so cool. It's a couple of other authors that you may have heard of. Amy Kaufman, who writes with Jay Kristoff
Yep.
sometimes, does some solo stuff too, and then also Nicole Hayes, who's a YA author, and both of them went out and took little trips for me where I had planned to go. Like I had notes of where I wanted to go and take pictures and, you know, things like that. They actually went out, took their little phones with them, and they you know, shot video for me, and so that I would be able to see everything that I wanted to see while I was in Australia. And they narrated the whole thing with their, you know, their wonderful Australian accent. So that was just a joy to watch those. And they really made Paper and Blood possible in a lot of ways. They really helped me out a lot there by doing my footwork for me.
That's amazing. And the nice thing is phones, you know, technology has really made this world in so many ways
Yeah.
so much smaller that we can do that. And it's amazing that and it's incredible that there are wonderful friends like that who are willing to just go the extra mile and you know that's such a cool story. That's just such good news.
Well, it turns out that Amy is actually a fan of the Iron Druid Chronicles. And so the idea that I was going to be writing something with Atticus and Oberon coming to Melbourne, where she lives, she was just like geeked out. So she, yeah, of course I will do this, because then she wants to hear about, these characters running around in her town, So I think that was part of the fun for her. And it was just a blast for me. And gosh, I hope you guys like it. I've had a wonderful time writing this. And
It's
I hope I answered your question, Joe, by the way. I'm sorry.
it's so much fun. It's amazing when you get a couple of writers in the room and one is the fan of the other, and you can just tell that there's that level of geek outness that I say I tend to geek out of your books. I had a funny story with Ian Rankin because I'm a huge Ian Rankin fan, and the first time I got to meet him, I think I stared at him maybe a little too long. Because I didn't know what to say. I was so just flabbergasted. But it's amazing. I mean, authors get to geek out a little bit too about writing.
Absolutely.
Who do you geek out of?
I actually, okay, so I kind of geek out a little bit about Amy and Jay Kristoff. Yeah, I love their stuff. That the Illuminate Files series that they did, so good. And then, of course, I tend to geek out a little bit on my buddies Chuck and Delilah. I love their work. Stephen Blackmore's urban fantasy series. If you guys like LA noir, but also with a necromancer, check out Stephen Blackmore's stuff. The first book is called Dead Things. And then Shannon S.A. Chakraborty, who wrote The City of Brass. That is such beautiful fantasy. And the one that I'm geeking out about right now is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Harrow, Harrow.
That's on my list of books to read, and I've got it at home waiting to crack it open. And I just finished the Chakrabarti series, and let me tell you, that is some of the smoothest fantasy writing that you're ever going to read through. I mean, you look at it and it's 800 pages, and it reads so quickly that you don't realize you're through that 800 pages so fast.
And I mean, that 10,000 Doors of January thing, I was kind of weepy at the end. It was one of those books you're so happy that you got to experience it. You're happy and sad at the same time, and so you're kind of like, oh, that was wonderful. And I was in a public place when I finished it, and this very nice lady saw me there, kind of getting emotional. She was so nice. She asked me if I was okay, and so I just gave her the book and said, "Here, you understand." And I just gave the copy away so that somebody else could experience it too. And that is what I'm telling you guys right now. Go buy the 10,000 Doors of January and have that awesome feeling. It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
I've really been in love with Jay Kristoff's Nevernight series as well.
Oh yeah,
that's one of my top fantasy series that I read this year. We read Nevernight a couple of years ago, and I got back because we have a little extra downtime. And that was a great book. It really was. James Mender says, Kevin, we know Al McBarris didn't show up until the end of the Iron Druid Chronicles. Yeah. Did Ink and Sigil take shape then, or had you been planning it before then and Al showed up and started doing, choose me as the main character?
Yeah, it was kind of that thing. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had a lot of options. Because for spin-offs, if I wanted to do more in that world, right, there were the Polish witches, there were, many of the vampires and werewolves. I could have, kind of explored that. I could have explored Owen, I could have explored Granuaile, all that kind of stuff. I had a whole bunch of options, but the thing that I kept coming back to was this character who showed up and literally spoke 2 lines in Besieged. But he was so weird and out of place. And I was like, why is he there? What is going on with him? What makes him, why did he even show up in my story? And so I then started to come up with it and think about why that could be. And it turned out to be the most interesting thing and most exciting thing that I could think of to do next. And so Al, I think you guys are going to be, pleasantly surprised by this. It is different from the Iron Druid, but the same, in a sort of bizarre way. So I think that you're going to dig it. I hope you will dig it. But yeah, Al was a late comer to the series, and he just became the most interesting possible avenue to explore for me as a writer once I had him there.
So, sort of related to that question of character, when you're creating the character, do you base? Carrie Blackmore wants to know if any of the characters in Ink and Sigil or any of the other books are inspired by people you know.
Just one. Hi, Carrie. It's good to hear from you. Um, so the Widow McDonough in the Iron Druid Chronicles, she was based on my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, because she would sit out on the porch sometimes with whiskey and let you know exactly what she was thinking about whoever was passing by. Had no problem, offering up her opinion to anybody who was in, hearing distance. So I really enjoyed that about her, and that was something that I was trying to capture with the Widow McDonough. So she's based on a real person, but everybody else is made up, except for Stephen Blackmore. Stephen Blackmore, who showed up in one of my stories, he was very real.
Joseph May has a second question. Any chance you can work with your publisher and get us an anthology for all the other novellas and shorts that you have written for IDC?
Okay, so that's a really good question. Who's that from? I'm sorry.
That's from Joseph Mave.
Okay, hi Joseph. Thanks. So the way things are right now is the best it's going to be, because what I did is I wound up collecting a whole bunch of stuff in the smallest collections I possibly could. Or not the smallest collections, but the largest collections I possibly could. That was the opposite of what I meant. For example, Besieged has a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, some of the things in Besieged were published elsewhere, and then some of them were new. Then I have another collection that you may have missed, but it's not available in print. It's available only in ebook and audio, and it's called First Dangle and Other Stories. The other stories part of that takes all of the stories that were out there in various different anthologies and puts them into my own anthology so that you guys have access to it. And I think it's pretty darn cheap on ebook and audio. And the audio is all narrated by Luke Daniels. So if you go check that out, First Dangle and Other Stories, that it first of all includes a novella featuring Owen and Slow-Mo, the sloth, who showed up in book 9. So there's an original story with just Owen and Slow-Mo that you can enjoy. And then there's also a bunch of stories collected from various anthologies that Luke had never narrated before. That was one reason I wanted to collect them, but also to collect them in one spot for ebook as well. So that's the best I can do. I have already done the best I can do based on various rights that are out there. I can't consolidate things any more than they already are.
Okay, so I was just thinking of this short story with Slow-Mo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't help myself. When you find something incredibly funny and you put it down on paper, how do you know it's funny? Like, do you go to somebody else and say, read this, is this funny? Or
Yeah.
is it something that you're just going to keep in and
Well, there's a couple of different layers. Okay, one is if I do think it's funny, I will share it with my wife and see if she laughs. And then if she laughs, then I will go and try it on my kid, who is of course a different generation, and see if they laugh, right? And then I will also kind of forget about it for a while, and then I will come back and reread the book much later and see if it's still funny and makes me laugh then. And if it does all of that, then I know it's a pretty decent joke. So, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you usually have our audience in stitches. So that's one of the great things about it. When you're here and there's such a good vibe and good energy and people are asking you questions, I mean, the store is just filled with laughter. It's awesome. And so many generations are reading your books. And that's really cool to see too.
Yeah, I always dig it when somebody young is kind of coming to the series for the first time and they say they enjoy it. I love that. And then I've heard from people who are, older than I am, and they're still digging it. So I'm always flattered by that as well. It's all great. I love it.
One of the things I love about the Pell series is that you're not afraid. You and Delilah weren't afraid to do a fart joke, and
We have no fear.
I've got to say, you're never too old for a fart joke. I mean, really.
Yeah, that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah, the Tales of Pell books were so much fun to write with Delilah. If you guys haven't checked those out, those are more intended to be comedic fantasy. The Iron Druid stuff and the Ink and Sigil books are supposed to be action things that are sort of like coincidentally funny, but we were actually, setting out to be humorous with the Tales of Pell and lovingly poking fun at fantasy tropes. So if you haven't tried those out yet, you can read them in any order. There's the Kill the Farm Boy, and No Country for Old Gnomes, and The Princess Beard. So those are all out now in paperback, and you can enjoy.
They're just hilarious, and when you need a good laugh, I think right now we're all in a need for a good laugh. I mean, I'd say pull out your entire library of Kevin Hearne, because you do throw in so much good energy out there into your books, and they're just fun to read and just a blast. It's always a favorite when you get to come. And kind of one of the fun things that we have here is, as you can see, the Jameson whiskey. We always have so one of the fun things at the store here is we have several little bottles of tequila. It was for Clive Kessler. We actually have the Jameson whiskey for Kevin when you come. And it's just not the same without, sharing a glass of whiskey with you, person to person.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'll have to, cheers from afar. I think weren't you gonna make an Irish mule with that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the fun things here, kind of in honor of you, Kevin, you're probably unable to see this at the moment.
Your elbow is awesome, though. It looks great.
So what we do is we've got the mule glass,
Yeah.
we got the Jameson whiskey, and
Yeah.
you're gonna pour about 2 ounces of that, or a good glug of it. Easiest drink in the world to do. Couple limes, and I just throw mine in.
Oh, okay. You don't squeeze them in there? You get the lime juice going?
Oh, I got the lime juice going, and then
Okay,
I just,
good. Yeah.
rather than, I don't have a peeler here tonight, so I'm just gonna throw those limes in.
That's perfect.
I'm gonna throw in a little bit of mint.
Oh, wow.
Go wrong.
You're getting fancy.
Mint. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Herbs. Whoa.
Throw a little bit of mint in there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my favorite ginger beer. It's the
what is it?
Cock and Bull.
Cock and Bull?
Cock and Bull.
Wow.
It's made with real cane sugar, and it's real strong ginger, but that's what you really want.
Yeah.
With the mule.
Okay.
And then you just pour in half a can.
Yeah.
Thing in the world to make.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
We get to pretend that we've got a drink with you.
All right. Yeah. Cheers. I got a little bit left.
Cheers. Listen, I'm a lightweight. You don't want me drinking on camera for too long.
Okay.
Next thing you know, I'll be trying to arm wrestle you through the camera. So, Patrick, any more questions? Well, Kevin, I want to thank you for coming. And doing this, virtually.
Yeah.
It's never the same. But if you're wanting to get a signed copy, sadly, we can't ship the books to Kevin all the way up where he lives. But he's been kind enough to sign his name away on book plates and maybe a couple checks. We threw a couple in just in case, Kevin. You can go ahead and order through the Poison Pen, or you can order your books anywhere. Really, we want the Ink and Sigil series to continue, so wherever you buy a book, you're more than welcome to, but we hope you buy through us, and that way you get the signed book plate from Kevin. And this is hopefully to many more years to come that we get to see you. and to get a share in your writing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who's watching and who's been reading, listening, whatever. I really appreciate you so much. And you're the reason I get to have fun, and I hope you're having fun too. So take care of yourselves, please, out there. And hope I will get to come back to Arizona soon and visit Rulabula and have some whiskey with you guys again sometime.
Absolutely. So to our Facebook audience, Kevin, let's say goodnight.
Good night, everybody.
See you guys soon.
Take care of yourselves.
Absolutely. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys in a couple days.
All right. Take care.
There we go. Kevin, how was it? Was it painless?
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's all we wanted. An easygoing conversation. What's going to happen? We're recording the Zoom meeting. They're going to cut out our before and after, turn that piece into a podcast. And Patrick's going to post our Facebook Live on YouTube. And we'll send you the link so that way if you want to share on any of your social media, people have links out there, and we're just promoting Ink and Sigil like crazy. I think we've sold out twice now. I mean, it's been awesome. Even without you being here, people have really been supportive of your book. So I'm sure we're going to see more of Ink and Sigil than book 3.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I hope people dig it. It seems to be getting some good positive press so far. Like good reviews and things like that from people who have read it. So, and people are laughing at it. So that's all according to plan, I guess, in that regard. So I'm just going to take a wild guess and think we were under 3,000 people on that. Quite Jim Butcher level, right?
Patrick, how many did we have watching at any given time? Do you know?
It was slightly less than Jim Butcher.
Yeah, I'm sure. Slightly being a very generous term.
But that 3,000, I think PK's.
I'm talking about over time, though.
He's talking about over time.
Yeah.
And so, these things tend to have, maybe a smaller number of people watching it live, but you watch by tomorrow morning, there will be hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of views. It just, people catch up to it.
Yeah, it's sort of amazing. It has legs to it.
Because it posts to Facebook, doesn't it?
We
keep it up there, and so these videos are forever. And so they just people keep finding their way to them over time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And it seems like right now, especially, with the state of everything, just fantasy in general, we're just doing gangbusters in science fiction and fantasy.
That's great.
Now. It really is. It's so cool. And, we wouldn't have had that fan base if it weren't for somebody like you, Kevin, who's come in and really brought that audience to the store. And that's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. There's so much going. It's not just the time now. I think right now, I think we're actually living through a golden age of science fiction and fantasy writing. Yeah. It's amazing work being produced right now. So
yeah,
I just think it's going to keep getting better too. So
even better. Yeah. I just finished Sarah Gailey's Upright Women Wanted.
Oh yeah.
You want a fun novella? That was great, and it had that Western twist to it with, I love the tagline. Are you a woman or are you a librarian?
That's great. That's great.
I thought it was pretty hilarious. Yeah, but it's a great story. She really knocked it out of the park. But, what's next for you? Are you going to be doing some more Zooms and then just a vacation?
Yeah, I don't have a ton. I'm doing some various little interviews, podcasts, whatever, things like that. But then I just have one virtual event on the day of release with Mysterious Galaxy over in San Diego.
Nice.
And that's it. So yeah, not a ton of stuff compared to, when I was running around doing things live. And that's fine. It's part of the times. It's, the way it is.
How far ahead of time are you? Because it's 7 here. Is it 11 there?
No, it's 10 here.
10 here? Okay. Yeah. One of the things that if you're ever getting bored, Barbara's been putting 2 authors together on Zoom, and then really doing kind of an interview with both of them. So if you ever wanted to have us do an interview with another author, and you're doing the primary interview, it's a lot of fun. We had Doug Preston just do that with Elsa Hart.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was nice because it brought attention to Elsa's book because he did the Cabinet of Curiosities, and her new mystery focuses on cabinets of curiosities as well. So it's kind of cool. If you're ever up for it, we could email you, and if you could, you
Yeah.
know,
I'm up for it. Because honestly, I don't know how much traveling I will get to do after the majority or whatever the pandemic is over with, because I am finding that I really love Canada in the summer. And going to, like, if I had to go to Arizona in the summer right now, I would not want to, because I've been there and I've done that. And because you were saying it was 117 there today. It was mid 70s here, my friend, and it was lovely. I love it here in the summer. So when I would want to travel is in the winter.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll have to see how it goes in terms of traveling stuff in the future. But I'm always up for virtual stuff and for doing more of this bookplate situation, because that was fairly cost effective, I think. And as you have seen, it's not been a terrible drag on sales to do that. So
Well, I mean, it's not the same without having you here, but your audience really understands.
yeah,
And that's what's so cool about that, is that they get that you can't come down. I don't mention that you're in Canada because I don't know if you want people to know you're in Canada.
yeah,
That's why I said mountains.
yeah, that's fine. It's okay if you say Canada now. I'm for a while I was being a little bit cagey about it, because things were weird for a while in America. But now, because when I first left, it was like, well, if you don't like Trump, get out. And now everybody's like, I wish I would have got out. You know what I mean? So it's a very different kind of feeling out there now. So it's all right. And then I really do dig it up here, and can't wait to vote in Colorado. They're going to be sending me my absentee ballot, and I get to vote electronically rather than through the mail, because Colorado is cool like that.
Have you stayed there long enough to get either your green card or your residency or whatever it was that you were looking for doing?
We were already permanent residents, and that's a 5-year thing. And we are now in the process of trying to get our citizenship.
Cool.
So once you get your citizenship, then you got a passport. You don't have to worry about, losing your permanent resident card or something like that. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it's going to be a process, but mostly it's because of all the travel that I did to the United States on my tours and things. I have to wait a little bit longer because they really count how many days you've actually been in Canada, to whether you are a citizen or not. So while it's technically been 3 years now since I moved here, 3 calendar years, I haven't spent a total of 3 years actually in Canada. There's probably 2 months of travel that I've been in the United States over that time. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Really.
So I'm on the road there.
We miss you here, but I'm glad you guys, everybody's healthy and happy there. And, I really, honestly, it's not the same not having you here, but I'm glad everybody's okay. And, we'll see you soon. That's the way
I miss coming down and seeing you guys too. You're just one of the best stores in the whole honking United States. It's just no doubt about it. It's not even close. So I'm really grateful for what you're doing down there. And if there's anything else I can do for you guys, you let me know. Okay, send me an email.
Absolutely.
Right.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you, Kevin. Take care of yourself. All right. Have a good night. All right.
We'll see you later.
All right. Dude. Bye.
Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.